You want to hear me or more of them? Never mind, never mind. Can't win that one. Thank you guys, you're great. You're going to hear more from them tonight, and you're going to get music all conference long. So my name is Sally Schaefer. I want to welcome you here this morning. I'm the chair of the Colorado Health Foundation Board. And I want to recap a little bit of last year because I want to create a little bit of context here. Last year we spent a little time talking about what we could do individually in N of 1. I know we've got a lot of big thinkers here who only think in N's of bazillions. But in the N of 1, what can we do to make ourselves healthier and happier? So I gave you some hints, and I want to see, how many of you were here last year? Quite a few. So you should have the answer easily to this question. So what's the single healthiest activity you can engage in? Laughing. It's not walking. It's not sex. In fact, I looked it up. 20 calories for sex, so don't try that again. Laughter is the single healthiest activity you can engage in. The second healthiest activity? Dancing, playing, beating the drums. Nice, but no. You even did it last year. What's the second healthiest activity you can engage in? Some of you are actually even doing it now. Not playing. It's breathing. It's deep breathing. So now what's the unhealthiest activity you can engage in? Working? Well, it depends on where you work. Unhealthiest activity. Stress. Yes. So to wrap up a little bit of last year's business, Big Dick Thompson was taking some money from a lot of people betting that I could not go 72 hours without dropping the F-bomb. And I'm happy to report that Dick did not make any money. But it was really very stressful, so we're not going to do that again this year. That's for me not to be stressed. So first of all, I want to acknowledge the board. Board members, if you're in here and not goofing off somewhere, would you stand up and be recognized? They're wearing red badges, so look them up if you haven't met them. Take the opportunity to do so. So last year, in kind of the setting the tone of not being stressed, we decided to set up different activities. The only activity that kind of boomeranged a little bit was the ping pong table right outside the door, because there were some of you who chose to play ping pong rather than listen to keynote speakers. So the ping pong table is now way down the hall, and there will be a monitor. So just know if you choose to do that. This year, what we'd like to do is take it up a notch. We deliberately decided to bring in music because I happen to be one of those people that believes that music really helps us de-stress. Does anybody else hold that view? Thank you, thank you. So I want to shift gears a little bit and do another N of 1 thing. Only I want to challenge you all to think about how you could, now that you've figured out and haven't retained hardly any of it, how you figured out how to be healthier and happier yourself. How can you make the world a little bit better place for someone else? So the first thing I want to challenge you about is, what kind of tone do you set? When you walk into a room, does the temperature go up or down? I'm a very irreverent person, but I think by and large people, thanks Jack, by and large people have fun around me most of the time, except when I'm being intimidating, and I've learned how to do that on purpose. So you know, if that happens, that's where that comes from. So what kind of tone do you set? For the balance of the conference, I'd like you to think about that, and I'd also like you to see if you can't engage in some activity that you don't normally engage in to make the world a little bit better place for someone else. And a couple ideas for you. One is, give the gift of listening. Anybody in here ever been told they're a good listener? It's a really, really hard thing to do, because we have this conversation going on in our head all the time about what we want to say back when someone's yakking. So think about whether or not that's something that you could choose to give to someone else, which is the gift of listening. Second thing I'd like to share with you is that there's a couple of phrases that are tremendously rewarding to someone else. One of them is, "I'm sorry." I get to say that a lot. Just because I'm irreverent and I'm sassy and I'm quick and I'm periodically thoughtless. So I spend a lot of time saying I'm sorry. But the other one is thank you. How often do we actually take advantage of the opportunity to tell someone that you appreciate that they've done something for you? We actually started in Grand Junction an annual event where we had the ticket in the door is you had to bring someone to this barbecue that you wanted to specially acknowledge in public about something that they had done. And it became a marvelous event, and then the person who brought them got to share that in front of the whole group, and we would have 80, 90, 100 people show up. And we'd have the police chief bringing a social worker. Amazing people who ordinarily wouldn't tell each other thank you for something that they had done. Touch someone. Don't go there. Reach out to someone. There's a lot of people who haven't been to this conference before who may be here alone. If you see somebody standing alone, go over and introduce yourself. There was an interesting study about touching done many, many years ago. They had a setup where people were checking through a grocery store line, and the checker was quintessentially obnoxious. And so these people would go through and have a really bad experience, and then somebody would be outside the grocery store, "Listen up, Russ," and they would have a microphone and say, "Well, how was your experience in this grocery store?" And they say, "Oh, well, it was miserable. This checker was really, really awful." And then they repeated the process a little while later, but they had the checker find an opportunity to touch someone on the hand or touch someone on the shoulder. And even though that person was equally obnoxious, when people came out the door, they found that their experience had been positive. So I actually I'm a hugger, I'm a kisser, don't take advantage of that. But sometimes you find just a hand on the shoulder, or our life is better when we are appropriately touched. The last thing before I let Art Gonzalez come up and tell us what he's been up to with this marvelous band that he's got. We all have gifts. Believe it or not, we all have gifts. And I happen to be one of those people who believe it's our responsibility to share them. So to what degree do you share your gifts? I happen to be a pretty good cook, and I love to cook. But I only love to cook for people I love. In fact, I have this shtick now where I cook for people who are sick or dying or dead. Those are kind of three different, and I have menus that go along with these things. In fact, I routinely was seeing a friend of mine who had ALS, and every time I'd show up with lunch, he'd say, so is this a sick one, or a dying, or a dead? And I told him I'd let him know when he was dead. He felt okay about that. So do you share your gift? Have you figured out what it is, for starters? And secondly, do you look for an opportunity to share it? Art Gonzalez clearly has. So at this point in time, I'd like to ask Art to come on over here and share with us how he's come up with this marvelous idea that he's already shared with us this morning. Art? Thank you for the support.
I'm going to borrow from Aristotle, who said if you're going to give remarks, make sure that your remarks have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Make sure that the end is as close to the beginning as possible. And most importantly, make sure you reach the end of your remarks before your audience does. So I'm going to do that. This is a very talented group of people. All of them work at the hospital or have very close working relationships at the hospital. And one of my personal beliefs in management is that behind every successful CEO, there's a band. And I think their names are going to come up here in a minute, but Michael Friedman is our musical director. He makes sure that we show up on time and we play the right things and we do the sound the right way, and he guides us. Michael's a professional in his own right and has many recordings to his credit. Tim Harlan works in administration. He's our Chief Acceleration Officer. Tim is one of our vocalists. Martin Soto, who's here, works also at the hospital. He's one of our lead vocalists. Nicole Stafford, Brandy Mitchell, Ray Mullendor, there he is. Taylor Kaufman, who's our lead guitarist. Gabe Garcia, who's our drummer. And sitting in with us as a special treat is Michael's son, Hank Friedman, who is a musician as well. He's playing saxophone with us today. And he also has a sideline gig as a DJ. So if anybody needs a DJ for your events, I'll put in a plug for Hank. I don't know how many of you know that recently we were voted the best band in Colorado in our price range. And this is an all-volunteer group, and when I say all-volunteer, what I mean was we just simply, we have over 5,700 people who work at Denver Health, and I thought surely we've got some talent here who would enjoy getting together, and so it's an all-volunteer band. These people work all kinds of nights and weekends and shifts and everything, and yet they make the time on their own time to come and play together. Many of them are pursuing advanced degrees in school, and so they take time away from school, but most importantly, they give time from their families, and their families would like to be with them, would like to see them and everything, and yet they still give some of that personal time. For that, each of them is a tremendous spirit, and the only things we play for is hospital functions and for our foundation whenever they have events. So we played for something called the Snowball, which is a pediatric event for children every December, and we play for the hospital picnic in October. For the first time, we played for the hospital's gala, which is the main fundraiser. And when we received the invitation to play here, we were absolutely thrilled that somebody else heard our music and thought it might be a contribution to their event. We very much believe in workforce engagement. We have 6 pillars at Denver Health that guide and focus our strategy and our everyday work, and one of those is workforce engagement. And we found that in workforce engagement, it requires not only head and hands, but also heart. So what the band represents is the heart of the organization to provide spirit for the events. And what we've noticed is before, if we'd had a picnic or something, they would come and get their food and go back to doing their work. But now when the band is playing, they stay, they socialize with one another, they get a kick out of watching an old guy with gray hair play guitar. And so it's a lot of fun and something that we enjoy doing, and it's our simple way to say thank you to our colleagues for the good work that they do and the things that they do. We don't have a name yet. We say the Denver Health Band, but that's because we have a name. At first it was to protect the incompetent, but now we realize that we're going to have to get over our delusions of musical adequacy and get a name. And so even that became a source of workforce engagement. We asked the entire hospital staff, what kind of a name do you think that the band should have? And we got more than 300 submissions, and we had a lot of voting for all of that. And right now we're down to the final 2 names, and we're just checking on those to make sure that we don't have a conflict with any copyright infringements or anything else. So soon the Denver Health Band will have its own name, and we'll go from there. So really, I just wanted to say thank you for having us. We hope you enjoyed the music, and we'll see you again tonight at the reception, and we'll be playing some more for you then. Thank you. Thank you, Sally.
I thought Mustang Sally was an inspired choice for the first song today. I have to tell you that that's the second time that's been done to me, and the first time was about 10 years ago at a Hilltop recognition banquet as I was walking up to the podium, and everyone thought it was really funny, and I had absolutely no idea what was going on. Never heard the song before. So they had double fun at my expense. So as we always do, we got your feedback last year about how you liked what we had done and what you thought we could do better. And you really liked the stations, so they are all there and then some. I think we've got some new ones this year. We got some feedback about the breakout sessions in the afternoon that caused us to do this a little bit different way. So they're going to be smaller, they're going to be more interactive, so you're not going to be talked at. They are when they're going to be full, they're going to be closed. And there was a little whining and carrying on that went on last year. So the whiners will meet in the left corridor, and we'll let you have a little bit of a support group. So if you really want to get to something, get there early. Also, I want to remind you, and we're only going to say this once, the Health Foundation is non-political and non-partisan. It is a political year, and every once in a while we have a speaker who leans a little to the left or the right. We are not responsible. Don't tell us. Tell whoever makes that mistake, okay? Okay. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce